Give us a sec here, folks. Getting the chat up and going. Or not. That's not it. Here. What's up, everybody? Technical difficulties. What are we doing? Now we're just monkeying around. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm trying to see. We're getting this bad boy going. We're getting up and running. We got stuff to cover. We got okay. Yep. And this is it right here, right? It's 213. Click out of the app. You want to step in and do it? Live. Trying to get the darn comments going. There we go. Thanks, Darren. Live chat. Sorry about that, folks. All right, let's get this. Let's get this party going. Let's get this Valentine's Day party going. A couple of news stories that we're going to cover. We're going to cover the Mayorkas. He got impeached, but that's not really going anywhere. The main one, we've got the Denver mayor. He's announcing these multiple rounds of cuts to services for the folks in Denver, and he's blaming the Republicans. That's the one we're going to get into first. Let's do that one. Denver announces first round of service reductions to pay for migrant support. You're going to see this throughout all of these big blue cities. They're all getting to that point where you've got this situation where they flat don't have the money to do what they need to do. And so cuts are having to be made. And as these cuts get made, you got to take them from somewhere, right? And in this story, we've literally got we've got a guy running the election department saying, no, we're not doing that. So let me get the intro done here. We'll get the intro and then we'll just run with this because we had a little bit of a delay there with the beginning here. So I need to. Still not seeing the live chat. You guys want to put up some messages? That'd be great. I can see people that are here. However, I can't see the actual messages yet. Here we go. Denver announces first round of service reductions to pay for migrant support. Mayor blames Republicans for the debacle that Denver is in with no budget to pay for all of said sanctuary city illegal immigrants. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's watch a couple of videos. Let's watch some videos. Just one or two quick videos.
Our other top story tonight, Denver's mayor is announcing cuts to city services to help offset costs related to the growing migrant crisis.
This after the failure of the bipartisan immigration bill in Congress this week. Denver 7's Christian Lopez is breaking down some of the changes you can expect to see across the city.
In an emotional announcement Friday morning, Mayor Mike Johnston said the city of Denver is now moving into a new phase with no federal support at all to help with the ongoing migrant crisis in the city.
I want it to be clear to Denverites who is not responsible for this crisis that we're in. The folks who have walked 3,000 miles to get to this city.
Johnston sharply criticizing congressional lawmakers after a bipartisan immigration deal failed to pass the Senate earlier this week.
That means now we will not have a likely reduction in the number of folks that are crossing the border without access to work authorization. We'll have more folks who will arrive in Denver without a path to CBP One or a path to TPS, which means they don't have a path to work. And we will not have any federal resources to support in the $180 million of costs that we are projecting to be able to provide these services well over the next year.
You should have thought about that before you went down that whole sanctuary city deal, right? I mean, what were you thinking? We'll just get a bailout here. We'll just get a bailout. It'll be fine. Oh, we're not getting a bailout? Oh, good Lord, this isn't good. What are we going to do? Well, we got to cut the budget. And the mayor of Denver is literally asking everybody within his administration, whatever you want to call it, we're going to have to make like 5% cut. We're going to have to make a little haircut. You guys all got to make a cut. And so folks are in Denver saying, no, not an election year. We're not cutting services during an election year. What's wrong with you? Well, it's the mayor of Denver, Mike Johnston.
That financial burden now forcing significant budget cuts, starting with Denver DMV and Parks and Rec.
What that looks like for DMV is we are no longer taking vehicle registrations in person. We will move those to online. We will start rotating weekly DMV closures starting on March 4th. We will also have to make some hard decisions around reducing services for Parks and Rec heading into this summer and spring. That means beginning February 20th, we will reduce hours at our rec centers.
And that's all just the beginning. Those cuts are expected to save the city about $5 million, less than 3% of projected costs.
This is a plan for shared sacrifice. This is what good people do in hard situations as you try to manage a way to serve all of your values. Our values are...
So many questions, so few answers. This guy has none of them. This guy raises more questions than provides answers, but this is typical of a blue, big, liberal city being run into the ground. I mean, let's be honest. This is not going to work out well because you're going to have more and more immigrants head to Denver, as we already know that the illegal path has been moved from the southern border in Texas. It's being moved up to the left, to the West Coast, and they're going to go through Tucson. They're already going through Tucson, and that's heading just straight up into Denver. It's happening in real time right now. And these folks are going to have more on their plate as far as responsibility and resources to be spent. You're not going to be able to do it with cuts from locals. It's just not going to happen. You can't do the budget that way. So, yeah.
We want to continue to be a city that does not have women and children out on the street in tents in 20-degree weather. And we also want to be a city that provides all of our constituents with the services they deserve and the services that they expect.
Those budget cuts announced are just the first steps. Mayor Mike Johnston says there will be more this year, so now more than ever, he is hoping that community members and surrounding cities will step up to help. In Denver, I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
Now,
my thought is, good luck. All right, here's the plan, guys. We're going to hope that things get better. We're gonna hope that the budget works out because we want everybody to have the same amount of services, the same level of services. What about the tax-paying citizens who are funding all this? Now they get a whack to their DMV. Have you been to the DMV lately? It's not a fun experience, right? It's just not. It's terrible. So now it's just going to be even slower. So I'm sure it'll all work out, right? Take a look at this video. Back to the beginning here.
where officials won't enforce federal immigration laws. Critics say that attracts more migrants, with illegal crossings at the southern border this year at record highs.
What would you like to see the city do?
Democratic mayors recently writing President Biden saying action is needed to help cities address the crisis.
What's the one thing you want from the Biden administration right now?
When you admit someone for asylum into the country, they should get work authorization. We should expedite the process of approving that application so it doesn't take 4 years. It could take 30 days.
Johnston is under increasing pressure from counties outside of Denver that are not taking in migrants. Suburban Douglas County passing a resolution demanding Denver drop its status as a sanctuary city, a jurisdiction where officials won't enforce federal immigration laws. Critics say that attracts more migrants, with illegal crossings at the southern border this year at record highs.
What would you like to see the city do?
I'd like the city to actively proclaim that it is not a sanctuary city. I think it's important.
All right. So this is Douglas County. This is outside of Denver, I think. And this guy is basically saying, yeah, this is Abe Layden from Douglas County. He is basically saying, ixnay on the sanctuary city, because he's reasonable and he understands that the budget only goes so far. And you can't just pay for everything. It's not going to happen. I mean, the whole situation to me is just mind blowing in the levels at which these Democrats are thinking that they're going to save the world, and you're left with, well, you can't save everybody. You can't save everybody, and in trying, you are literally bankrupting your cities. You're going to have a massive federal federal bailout. And, right now, I'm not really seeing that happening.
Important that we're not bringing people to a cold weather climate.
There are more than 2,600 migrants in Denver's shelter system, and now nearly 30,000 who have come through Denver in the last year, costing taxpayers more than $32 million so far.
Denver shelters are full, with some migrants now sleeping in tent encampments like these, where temperatures drop below freezing at night.
It just seems like pretty inconvenient for them and for us. Really, a lot of people in this.
Inconvenient? Freezing your rear end off? Yeah. How about just not good? How about not good planning? Hey, you knew you only had so much in the way of resources for homelessness, and then you just keep bringing people in? All right. How about that sanctuary city? Yeah.
This apartment complex are concerned.
Families with children are given priority in Denver shelters. We meet a group of adults who just arrived. Genesis from Venezuela said they don't know where they're supposed to go next. We don't know. We have no knowledge, direction, location, she tells us. Jan saying, we had to go through 7 countries on foot through the jungle. We came for the opportunity for the work permit.
Mayor Johnson says Denver expects to spend as much as $100 million on migrants in the next year, but they're only budgeted for $20 million.
Thousands of flight attendants walking picket lines.
I'm sure it'll work out just fine somehow, right? I mean, this will just magically work its way into some semblance of reality. Well, you know what? Okay, here's the clerk guy that's saying, hey, yeah, we are not really doing that. We're not closing down. I need to square up. Move the camera a little bit there. Yeah, that's better. All right.
State Antitrust Act. We are seeking to prevent this merger from taking place, and we are pursuing civil penalties and injunctive relief in connection with another violation of Colorado's antitrust laws. At the outset, I want to thank everybody across our state who engaged.
There we go. This is the one I need, not that one. I don't know what that guy was talking about. Kristen, that's a no-go. We'll cut that piece. Here we go. Let's go with this one.
Denver's mayor is getting pushback on his call for shared sacrifice to address the migrant crisis. The elected official who runs Denver's elections says he will not comply with the budget cuts requested by the mayor, not during an election year. Here's Mark Salinger.
The cuts that are being asked of my office in a year like this, in 2024, with what we're up against, is absolutely unacceptable.
In a city that's asking every department to cut its budget, Denver clerk and recorder Paul Lopez says his office will not comply.
We're not going to participate in any kind of budget cuts. It's 2024. We have a presidential election.
Lopez says Mayor Mike Johnston asked him to cut nearly $1 million out of his budget to help the city pay for the cost of the migrant crisis. Johnston has said the city is short $180 million this year, putting the blame on the more than 40,000 migrants who've arrived in Denver. Every office, from the police department to the animal shelter, is facing cuts.
It's a slippery slope when you talk about defunding elections. It's a slippery slope, especially now when
defunding elections. I love it. We're defunding elections for what was the other term? Shared responsibility. You got to share the No, you don't. You got to get rid of your sanctuary city status and then try and rebuild your budget, try and get back on track. That's what you got to do, but you're not gonna, because you're not reasonable, because you're Mike Johnston, right?
our democracy's at stake. $1 million means that you're cutting operations, you're not fulfilling security mandates, or you're cutting personnel.
The Office of Clerk and Recorder in Denver is an independently elected, nonpartisan position. The mayor's office told us budget cuts were merely requested, not required, for offices like Lopez's that don't directly report to the mayor.
And I hope there's a willingness to learn about what we do before we are asked to cut from it.
In a presidential election year that also will see several local elections, Lopez says cutting $1 million from his budget will leave elections and election workers vulnerable.
Under no circumstance am I willing to sacrifice the safety, the security, the transparency, or the accessibility of our elections.
His answer to the mayor is clear.
It's 2024, and our democracy is at stake. So no.
The nearly $1 million that the clerk and recorder's office was asked to cut is about 5% of their total budget. They're part of the same category as, say, the district attorney's office. We're told that office has also been asked to cut 5% of its budget, but again, they technically have the choice not to, because it's an independently elected office. It's merely a request, Kyle, as the mayor's office put it to me today.
And then you got the money that's going to Denver Health. That also is a separate category. Mayor's office can't force Denver Health to take less money.
Right.
But a lot of city agencies do have to jump when the mayor says jump.
Yeah, there's a lot of offices that are already preparing things like the police department, the fire department, the public safety department, the animal shelter. All those offices, they don't really have the choice to say no. We asked the mayor's office, hey, are you guys also preparing to take budget cuts? They told us yes.
Like the mayor's office itself, the
Correct.
staff and budget he has control over.
They say that they are the part of those budget cuts, just like every other department in Denver.
All right.
Terrible
The clock is ticking
decisions.
for Valentine's Day.
See what we're dealing with here, right? I mean, is this not just insanity? I mean, so you can see there are some reasonable people in Denver. There are. They're probably still going to vote Democrat because that's just how things have gone. But you've got people that are like, no, this is not a good idea. This is a terrible idea. Notice how that guy's in the office of registrar or whatever it is, voter's office. He said 3 times, I think at least 3 times. I don't need these right now. He said 3 times, it's 2024. And you kind of got the feeling that he's ramping up for a tricky election. So some of my other podcasts today, the other 2 that we'll do is the first one, or the second one is going to be, let's take a look and see. Oh, we had 269 illegal Chinese immigrants come through the San Diego border yesterday. So almost as many, about 3/4 as many as all of 2021. Yesterday we had come through the San Diego border because they're coming through in hordes. We've been talking about that. We're going to get into that. And then, we'll figure out. We've got another 1 or 2. And then, ladies, for you at the end of this podcast, I've got a little something special for you since it's Valentine's Day. I've got something I think you'll enjoy. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this article. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston announced cuts to some city services to pay for migrant support and blamed Congress, specifically Republicans, for exacerbating the situation by not passing an immigration bill. That immigration bill was terrible. It did not, to me, you take the laws that are on the books already, like Trump did, and that's what you do. I mean, that's where you start. Do we need immigration reform? Absolutely. But that bill, that was a bad deal to me. I mean, in my opinion. So I'm glad it didn't go through. I mean, this whole thing that the Republicans are just trying to tank everything because they can kind of keep looking good with this whole, illegals just pouring in. Well, none of these sanctuary cities, they're all self-proclaimed. So everything happening to these cities is what they wanted and is what they identified as. And so now you've got little areas saying, like the guy we just saw in Denver, just outside of Denver, saying, no, we would rather have Denver say we're not a sanctuary city so that the outer lying areas don't have to take the impact. Johnston announced changes to reduce costs at Denver motor vehicle offices and the Department of Parks and Recreation. Parks and Rec, you're going to cut Parks and Rec? No, you can't do that. That was a great show, wasn't it? That was a funny show. It made fun of all this ridiculousness that's going on. That was during a press conference on Friday. The reductions will save $5 million, and Johnston said more cuts will be necessary because it's a tiny, tiny percentage of the overage that you're going to incur by being a sanctuary city. And I don't think the number of illegals has really been kind of identified that's gonna go to Denver, because now that you've pushed kind of away from that Texas border, you're going to push a more direct route right into Denver. That's going to be one of the main cities that's going to take the brunt of the pressure that Greg Abbott is putting on this situation. In early January, Johnston alerted the city council the number of migrants arriving in needs of services would cost the city approximately $180 million this year. They are literally bankrupting their own city by choice, and then trying to blame somebody else. Well, if we just had, this 100 and what is it? The massive bill that just got, I was trying to think of that. Is it 180 billion? I think 118 billion that just got basically shit canned, and rightfully so. It was just terrible. The city pulled $10 million from a contingency fund and $15 million from a remodeling fund, according to information from Johnston's office. Yeah, you don't want to have a contingency fund. You don't want to have a rainy day fund, and you don't want to have a remodeling fund. Put it all into the illegals because you have self-proclaimed being a sanctuary city. Sure, that'll be fine. I'm here to talk about the devastating impact of the failure of Republican leadership in Congress this week to pass comprehensive immigration changes and the impact that will have on both city budgets and on services that we can provide for newcomers in the city, Johnston said to open the press conference. You know, there are cities that were not self-proclaimed sanctuary cities. They do not have these issues because they realistically looked at their budget and went, you know what? We can't afford it. It's irresponsible for us to self-proclaim being a sanctuary city and take all of these folks in and just basically mess with our economy, mess with our budgets, mess with our locals. All right, we're going to shut some school, down. We're going to shut down parks and recs. We're going to literally, rock the society of the social structure of these sanctuary cities. Yeah, there's a bunch of cities. Most cities just said no. You got these big cities that have to compete against each other, like Seattle and Portland, LA, and you've got Massachusetts, the entire state. I mean, things are just not going to go well there. Johnston said Denver officials worked with congressional leaders from both parties, the White House, and several federal agencies to push for action. Push for action. Denver has supported 38,000 migrants at a cost of more than $42 million during the last few months, according to Johnston's office. Let's put that in relative terms. So number of migrants that came across, so it's 38,000 in recent times, right? Denver has taken. In December, we had 302,034 migrants come across the southern border. What is that, 9 times what the number we're talking here? So these self-described, self-appointed sanctuary cities are taking a fraction of the folks just streaming through the southern border. And they're crying uncle because they're realizing, ooh, this is expensive. This is not going to work out. Hey, Parks and Recs, could you cut your budget by 5%? Hey, elections officials, we need you to whack a little something, even though it's a election year. Despite broad bipartisan support, I think former President Donald Trump and Republican leaders saw this as a chance that if this bill actually passed, it would have successfully solved the problem facing cities on the border. It still would have allowed what? Way in excess of $1 million a year. That doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem at all. What starts to work on solving the problem is what Governor Greg Abbott is doing in Texas, which is actually securing the border. How hard is that to work out? No amount of legislature, if you're not enforcing, it's going to work. It's just not. I mean, this is ridiculous. But what happens is you have enough people saying, well, if we just had the legislature, pass this bill, we would have been golden. It's like Biden saying, just give me the power. And then the next day he's saying, well, I'm going to use my executive powers to make this go. And you're left with, nothing that guy's going to do is going to make this happen. And this guy doesn't have a go gear in his system, right? He's just got neutral or backwards. They would have rather seen it fail so they could exacerbate these problems. The problems are being exacerbated because you self-described as a sanctuary city and brought this on yourself. Period. It's not that difficult. If a real estate guy from Seattle can figure this out, I mean, come on now, right? And extend the suffering of American people and of newcomers for their own electoral chances in this November. Now, it was a terrible bill. It got tanked, as it should have. And, we move on. But now they want to take credit for, well, the Republicans, they're to blame. I was watching Tim Pool yesterday, and he had some woman on his show that was obviously very liberal. And she was basically saying that, all right, we have to look at the root causes of what's causing all of these people to want to leave their countries and come to America. We got to look at the root cause. And I came up with, okay, root causes means you don't really want to do anything because you want to reimagine and rethink what the problems are. And then you need to have a game plan. Right? Barbed wire is a game plan. That is a deterrent. All of this root causes and why are people coming in from Honduras? Why are people coming in from Venezuela? We got to look at that because it's American policy. And you're just left with, so you just want to think about this and talk about it and, come up with conjecture of why this may or may not happen. But you don't really want to do anything. And she didn't know where the Darien Gap was. She thought it was in Mexico. Like, okay, I'll give you one, but you might want to if you're going to go on a big podcast like that, you might want to get your stats in order. And nobody else in the Tim Pool realm of folks knew where the Darien Gap was either. It's half of it's in Colombia, half of it's in Panama. And it's just this treacherous, brutal section you go to make your way up into Mexico. You can go through multiple countries. But this woman was saying that, the United States has a responsibility to everybody that is having a tough either economic time or being politically prosecuted. And that is kind of the overriding factor here, is that these big blue liberal cities think that they have a responsibility to save everybody, budget be damned. And that's literally what we're watching unfold. All right, you're going to need to take a cut. And GMV, yeah, no more car processing titles for you guys because we got to house the migrants. And the locals are going, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. So you're having just a scooch of pushback, right? Pushback on the shenanigans. Yep. As part of the reductions, the Denver Motor Vehicle Office will no longer take vehicle registration renewals in person, and drivers must complete registrations by mail, online, or at kiosks. 5 locations will have rotating weekly closures. No. Hard no. Hard no is where I would be with this. Denver already has a massive homelessness problem, right? I mean, they do. New York City already has a massive homeless problem. We've got all kinds of these self-proclaimed blue cities that have basically come right out and said, we can't take any more, but hey, let's take on the world's problems. And here we are. And the whole Chinese thing, some of that has to do with these folks are coming over based on instructions from TikTok. They're getting into the country. And when the United States, when our border protection tries to send these illegals from China back to China, China says no. So either which way, the illegals that are pouring across the Arizona and Nevada and California borders now, they're going to be in the U.S. one way or the other, because China is often saying, no, we're not taking them back, period. So these folks have nothing to lose. And why wouldn't they come here, right? Because with what we've got going on, one of my other podcasts today will be, there's going to be a massive rush of illegals into the United States with the fear, which is seemingly escalating, is the fear that Donald Trump might win. And he's already come right out and said, we're going to do some record level deportations. And whether he does or not, I don't know, but it's like real estate. It's based on impression. It's based on the market's recognition of what may or may not happen, not reality necessarily. Trump has already said, hey, we're going to have some record level deportations. So I think coming into the 2024 election, you're going to have, those numbers are going to get pumped up, right? I mean, that just makes sense to me. Spring recreation programming will be reduced by 25%. Poor kids. Recreation centers will go from operating 7 days per week to 6, and neighborhood centers will reduce hours of operation. All right. So you're going to take away healthy programs for kids and for residents of these areas and fund a never-ending cycle of illegals coming into Denver. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. The city also plans to make changes to migrant services provided and decrease the number of newcomers served. All right. But when they're in your streets, they're living homeless, they're living raw. What are you going to do? Somebody has a baby, legal immigrant from Venezuela has a baby on your sidewalk. Are you not going to give that person care? I mean, what are you going to do? These are the things that have, or how about arrests that are being made of people pulling shenanigans that are illegal immigrants without a work visa in your said sanctuary city? What about those folks? You're going to have to spend what is now a shrinking police budget, what little you have left, on those types of things, because you're inherently going to have a bunch of fixed costs, a bunch of fixed expenses. And I know I'm talking business here now, but that is at the heart of so much of this, is you do not have people running these big blue cities that have any background in business whatsoever, because they'd look at the budget and go, yeah, I'm sorry, we can't do that. That's irresponsible to our constituents. And that's what Governor Greg Abbott has done down in Texas. He looked at it and he went, this is ridiculous. We're taking over. And he took over Shelby Park. And here we are. And now these are the stories. We've run out of money. We can't afford all these illegals in our community. So this was solvable with bipartisan support, and we would not be facing these challenges, Johnson said. Really? How? Because nothing really changed there. You're still a sanctuary city. You still got people pouring over the border. So how would that have really changed? What would have changed? I want to be clear to Denverites. Who is not responsible for this crisis we're in? The folks who have walked 3,000 miles to get to this city, but leading them into believing that you're going to provide for them, it creates that draw of them coming in, right? Whereas what Greg Abbott is doing is he is pushing back and saying, no, you can't come here in these huge numbers. It's a no-go, pushing back on the cartel, pushing back on all these numbers. In addition to getting more federal financial assistance, Johnston said the federal government allowing work authorization permits to migrants would dramatically help the problem. Or does it create more problems? You don't know who these folks are. They have not been vetted. That is the whole point of the immigration process. That's the whole point. Vast majority of these people looking for asylum will not get it. In the meantime, you've got millions, 10, 12, 14, 16 million illegals that have come into the country since the Biden administration has taken office. Where are they? What are they doing? We don't really know. So no, you can't just willy-nilly hand out, work visas just to anybody who comes along. We live in a society, this is Jim Jeffries, we live in a society, we have rules. And, coming from that guy, you're like, okay, yeah, your rules are a little different than the rest of us. But he's got a point. You've got rules that you got to follow. The rules are there for a reason. And the whole reason we've got this massive debacle is because the federal government has not been following the rules. They have not been following the rules set forth by Congress, the rules that are on the books. And how do we know this? In real estate terms, we have a matched pair analysis, which means we saw what the immigration numbers were under the previous administration, Donald Trump, and now we're seeing what happens with those same numbers with the Biden administration. What does that look like? Well, we had record low numbers when things were enforced, and then when things weren't enforced and we basically turned Customs and Border Protection into a delivery service for the illegals, well, then you have record levels escalate the wrong direction, right? Record levels just flooding the country. So you've got a matched pair analysis. That's an appraisal term. But it's so accurate because, all right, you've got one set of criteria here, you got another set of criteria here. What's the difference? One followed the law, one didn't. There you go. There's your sign. You don't need that 118, chair dropped on me. You don't need that 118 billion or whatever it was. Most of it was meant for Israel and Ukraine. What are we even doing there? They have asked for nothing but the ability to work and support themselves. Yeah, but they came into the country illegally, you schmuck. I mean, how do we see this any differently? They came in illegally. If they want to, go for asylum, that's fine, but not in the United States. Have them do that wherever it is that they're coming from and work that process. Problem there is most of them will not get in because just being poor isn't going to grant you asylum, and just having general violence in your community, like so many of these that are coming from, isn't a way to legally get into the country, and you're going to be denied. So you're going to be turned back. So at some point in time, are we going to have a massive pushback and a massive deportation? I mean, what a mess that would be. But a lot of folks are saying, yeah, that's what we need. I guess we're going to find out, right? And this whole notion, what I find really interesting is you've got more and more people saying, you know what, I think Trump's got a chance to win. He's ahead in the polls, and Biden, I mean, what is Biden even doing? Biden has just had a terrible run lately, right? He's got that special report, and now the Republicans are asking, hey, you know what? We'd love to see a copy of that report. I was reading a story on that this morning, and some people are saying, if there's nothing in it, then release it. The only reason you wouldn't release it is because it's got more damning stuff in it, like Biden is an elderly gentleman who is losing his effing mind. Yeah, there wasn't effing, but let's be honest. That's a concern when the leader of the free world can't remember the passing of his son. I view this as elder abuse. Biden is the same age as my parents. If my dad was having these type issues, and my dad is not having these type issues, but if my dad was, I would be saying, you know what, let's get dad out of there. But that's, the Biden regime has gone down so many other avenues. 10% for the big guy. I mean, he's so integral to that family's wealth structure that, they're going to prop him up for as long as he can. They're going to give him that senior citizen speed for as long as he can, and we'll just see how this goes. So let's finish this one out. Employers across the city have asked for nothing but the chance to hire them. And the federal government this week said those folks who want to work in this country cannot be employed by people in this country who want to hire them. That is the crisis. No, the crisis is is that you let the southern border just go. Now you've got pressure on the northern border as well. Now you've got big pressure coming across from Canada. Oh, things are going to get spicy. I think 2024 is going to be, I think it's going to be quite the year because we've got a number of months to ramp up, right? And with this kind of stuff going on, these budget cuts, they're not going to get smaller. They're going to get bigger. And the numbers of people coming into the country are, in my opinion, especially going to like a Denver, going to a San Diego, California, or going to Arizona up through Tucson. Those numbers are going to get bigger because you've put pressure that direction by what Abbott is doing, and he's not going to back down. I mean, you're going to have to literally take an army to that dude to get him to move, and he's literally not going to back down. I covered yesterday during the live stream, I covered an entire speech that he did, and he outlined exactly why he's doing what he's doing. To me, it makes absolute sense. He's running a business, he's running a state, and he's running the southern border like it should be run. And people are freaking out. Oh, but how can we get these people a work visa? It's wild stuff, right? It's just, this is the micro, of what's going on. And this is happening all across the United States in these big blue sanctuary cities. It's not going to turn out well. But you know what? For us, get out that popcorn. All right, that's it for me on this one. Thanks for being here on this episode. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching. And for you live streamers, you just stay right here. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let the people vote. Chips fall where they may. Totally agree. Needed to change the age for being a president to 40 to 65. Yeah, but we've had some pretty good presidents in their 70s, right? Reagan? What about Reagan? How about, what was that TV show he had? Remember my dad always talking about it with the chimpanzee or the monkey? Bedtime for Bonzo? Was that it? Oh, man. Yeah. So they did this intentionally. You know what? It does seem so, doesn't it? So much of this seems intentional. No, I'm glad somebody showed me this news feed. Blackbird, thanks for being here. Thanks all you guys for being here. FJB. That's classic, right? FJB. I go with let's go, Brandon. Because you still get people that look at you and go, what? What do you mean? It's kind of a funny joke. Republicans really support this dude named Brandon. My chair. Keep losing it. Need a new chair. Darren, a new chair. All right. Let's move on to the second. Chinese migrant crossings from Mexico. Here we go. Yep. 269. All right, let's get this one going. Got to shift gears here just a second. Take a drink of water. Thanks for being here on Valentine's Day. I know you guys have something special planned for tonight, right? What is it? This is my mountaineering cup, by the way. It's been up Rainier, I think, 9 times. Something like that. It's been to top of Cotopaxi in Ecuador. It's a good cup. It's probably got all kinds of plastic, bio, whatever. I don't care. It's my mountaineering cup. It's probably 25 years old. It's from REI. That's what I drink out of. I could be drinking out of one of these bad boys. Reasonable, but who wants to do that when you can get, some kind of plastic chemical into your system? All right, let's do this next one. San Diego border agents arrest 269 Chinese migrants in a single day amid growing concern over why so many are flooding into the U.S. What do we have going on? We've got shenanigans. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's watch a little video. Got some good video on this one. Chinese migrants flood California. Braving journey for something. Yeah. This is a good one from News Nation. News Nation has been doing work.
Now to the southern border, where agents say a surge of Chinese nationals are being apprehended. Concerning. So last month, agents apprehended 10 times as many Chinese migrants. Then the same time last year, many are claiming asylum, saying they're fleeing the Communist Party in mainland China. News Nation's Jorge Ventura is live in Southern California. And Jorge, I understand these migrants are taking the same dangerous trek as those from Venezuela and elsewhere.
That's right, Kelly. And to the Chinese migrants that we spoke with here in the San Diego sector, they have crossed over 7 different countries to reach U.S. soil. And in the past 2 days, we've encountered hundreds of Chinese migrants living in 2 makeshift camps here on the border in Jacumba Hot Springs in San Diego County. Now, this sector here in San Diego has seen an unusual surge in the crossings by Chinese migrants. In October, agents here apprehended over 4,000 Chinese nationals. Now, compared to that same month last fiscal year, when agents only apprehended 329 Chinese nationals, a major spike. Now, check this video out. News Nation cameras were able to capture a massive group of Chinese nationals being processed by Border Patrol agents early Monday.
Okay, so what I want you to focus on here is look at this luggage. These people are flying in. These people are flying in. They are not taking this luggage through the Darien Gap, right? They are flight, maybe a boat or two, but you're not hauling this stuff. Those are big, heavy bags with a lot of stuff. They are coming in by airplane. Let's be honest, because everybody else comes with a backpack. Why? Because you don't want to be carrying this luggage, for 1,000 miles through Mexico or up and over the Darien Gap. These folks have resources, about 14 grand to make your way here from Ecuador, from Quito, where these folks would fly into, because they don't have to have a visa to fly into Ecuador, whereas, other countries you do. So the luggage you've got going on here, this is all hard luggage. Those are people that flew. They have more resources. The other illegals are paying like 4 grand, maybe 6 grand. So big, huge difference. And the Chinese are oftentimes, they're putting a third down too. And then they'll pay off the other 2/3 to the cartel doing what they got to do, which isn't going to be legal. So that's another huge issue you've got going on in the United States. Now you've got literally millions of people that owe to the cartel. And meanwhile, let's just give them a work permit. It should be fine. And you're like, yeah. Are you understanding, Mike Johnston, mayor of Denver? Are you understanding the mechanics here at all? What are we doing? I don't know.
Chinese nationals being processed by Border Patrol agents early Monday morning. The majority of them are single adult men. And because of the language barrier, processing Chinese migrants takes a longer time, and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed from the increase in illegal crossings here.
Almost
Hundreds
all
of Chinese migrants
dudes
are now living in makeshift camps waiting to be processed. They say they want to get away from the Chinese Communist government and hope to be granted asylum in the U.S. We met Bam, who is from Vietnam. Her husband is from China. They arrived to the camps earlier Monday morning. The couple traveled through 7 different countries to reach U.S. soil. The Chinese migration is being fueled by Chinese social media apps like WeChat that instruct migrants on how to make the trip.
Sure, that's a federal park and, destroying vegetation. That's okay, isn't it? It's all right. I mean, you gotta get yourself a little fire going, don't you? I mean, everybody needs a little heat. I don't blame these people for tearing stuff up and doing what they're doing, because they're freezing out there. You and I would do the same thing, but we're letting this happen. That's the rub, right? That is the rub. It's like,
From China to the U.S. Majority of Chinese migrants here fly to Ecuador because the South American country does not require a travel visa from Chinese citizens. In the first 9 months of this year, over 15,000 Chinese migrants traveled through the dangerous Darien Gap jungle in Panama that is controlled by criminal groups. Now, law enforcement sources telling News Nation that once Chinese migrants arrive in Mexico, smugglers can make up to $35,000 per Chinese migrant smuggled to the U.S. border. And this Chinese migration, as well as the other migrants crossing illegally in this sector, is straining resources here for the county of San Diego. In a couple hours, county officials here in San Diego will vote on whether the county will spend $3 million in taxpayer funds for migrant services.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
So the 35K, that is a number
Once
that
through
is
the hole,
much
the
higher
migrants walked about
than I have seen. But yeah, who knows, right? Who knows? Hey, get you a 2 for 1. All right, let's go look at TikTok for a second. We got some funny stuff going on TikTok. TikTok, right? Chinese app. Here we go.
Chinese migrants are the fastest growing group trying to cross the U.S. southern border, and some of them are getting step-by-step instructions from TikTok. Last year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported that 37,000 Chinese citizens were apprehended as they illegally crossed the border. That's 50 times more than just 2 years earlier. Common reasons for leaving China include its increasingly repressive political climate and sluggish economy. At least 36,000 Chinese nationals have been ordered by U.S. immigration courts to leave the country, according to a 60 Minutes review of immigration and customs enforcement data. But China often refuses to take back citizens, and the U.S. can't force China to accept them. So with the odds in their favor, there's little to discourage more Chinese migrants from attempting to illegally cross the border from Mexico. Over 4 days, 60 Minutes witnessed nearly 600 migrants pass through a single 4-foot gap at the end of a border fence 60 miles east of San Diego. They all passed through the gap.
And you know what San Diego and California are doing about this? Nothing. Border Patrol, we got a whole big group here. Can you come pick them up and we'll send them out? Yeah. California and Arizona and New Mexico, they're going to need a big box of tissues for all of their issues.
Gap and onto U.S. soil unchecked. But how did many Chinese migrants find out about the hole? Videos on TikTok. The videos feature step-by-step instructions for hiring smugglers and directions to the border gap. Once through the hole, the migrants walked about half a mile down a dusty road and waited in line for U.S. Border Patrol to arrive so they could surrender. For years, millions of Chinese entered the U.S. with a visa that allowed them to visit, work, or study. But tensions between the two countries have made these visas more difficult to acquire. In 2016, the U.S. granted 2.2 million temporary visas to Chinese nationals versus just 160,000 in 2022. Now, many are turning to the U.S. southern border, where they cross illegally and then attempt to make asylum claims, which can take years to be settled. Watch the full 60 Minutes story on YouTube and Paramount+.
So that story's been out there for a little bit, but yeah, here, I'm not going to read this one, but migrants have used the CBP One app 64 million times to request entry into the U.S. Have you guys checked out this app? You download it. Who are you is how the app starts. And only 450,000 have been granted asylum status. So that is 0.7% success ratio. I mean, it's a fraction of the reality. And that more accurately reflects the fact that most folks do not qualify for asylum. They just simply don't. All right, let's see if we can get you guys squared away here. There we go. How about that? Look at me just dominating this feed. Oof, doing work over here. And what it is if I hit enough buttons, something will pop up that looks good, right? San Diego boarding agents arrest 269 in 2021. In the entire year, we had something like, well, we're going to find out, I think like 321 in the whole year. Yesterday, we had 269. You got some exploding numbers. San Diego Border Patrol agents have faced an untenable flood of Chinese migrants sneaking over the border each day. Are they even sneaking? Do you remember when they used to sneak and hide? You know what they do now? Border protection, come get me. We're over here. Come get me. And you've heard stories. There's been stories about people with little babies and little kids that are, left behind. They didn't make the cut, whatever it was, and they got to spend the night in the desert overnight. And deserts get cold, right? So, you're enticing people to come into the country illegally, and then when they get here, it's tenuous at best. Whole thing is just effed, isn't it? It is. Border sources claim that 269 Chinese migrants were apprehended by Customs and Border Protection officials in a single day this week, according to Fox News' Bill Malugan, with the number not including those who managed to cross undetected. Why would you want to come across undetected at this point? I mean, you literally want to flag that dude down. Hey, take me in. Let's get this started. Let's get this party going. You know, take me to your leader. Like a UFO. Chinese nationals now make up the largest growing demographic of migrants crossing the porous U.S.-Mexico border, and 2024 is already well on track to easily exceed the staggering 37,000 Chinese migrants who were apprehended by the Customs and Border Protection in the 2023 fiscal year. I think you're going to have absolutely through the roof record-setting year. Because why wouldn't you? Give me a reason why you wouldn't. You've got all this pressure on why it would happen because there's so much unknown. And so if you've got a guarantee, which is you got Biden in office, I mean, who knows what could happen to him before the end of his term is up, right? I mean, he is literally in some massive cognitive decline. And anybody who just said, I remember people telling me before this last election, I had literally family members say to me, oh, it wasn't said to me directly, but it was, oh, he's got a speech impediment. Sometimes he mixes up his words a little bit. Like, are you kidding me? The guy, he mouths just gibberish. It's gibberish. So far in the 2024 fiscal year, which began in October, over 20,000 Chinese migrants have been apprehended. In 2021, this number stood at just 342. That's the number I was looking for. So 269, call it yesterday, 342 in all of 2021. That is a staggering rise. That is not a bell-shaped curve. That is straight to the moon, right? It comes after a U.S. Border Patrol chief warned that his agents are being overwhelmed by the flood of Chinese migrants, fearing poor verification measures mean they could be missing communist spies. A lot of people think that. A lot of people think that these are plants in our country. A lot of people think, hey, they're creating an army. What I always come to, whether you want to believe all that, you want to go down those roads or not, what I always come to is you've got to have a system in place that doesn't just allow people to come into the country willy-nilly. Other countries throughout the world do not do that. Some places in Europe do, but most do not. My son Kieran, he flew back in yesterday from London. He went to London to watch the Super Bowl. I know it seems a little weird, but go Kieran, go. And so we were talking about that last night, and he was like, Dad, they don't have any homeless people there. And the only homeless people they have are people that look like they're alcoholics. I'm like, yeah, because you're paying quite a bit higher tax rate to provide for all these social services. And he was talking about how London, it's a big town. It's close to 9 million people, and basically how clean and well run it was. So we had that conversation, and I'd kind of talked to him about some of the things that I've been covering, which is the absolute debacle here of this migration, where things are not well run. But could you imagine? And I know there's immigration stuff going on in Europe right now. You've got people coming across via boat, and there's all kinds of this stuff going on. But most countries are not just willy-nilly with their border protection, literally escorting people across the border and saying, yep, go over to that white van over there. We'll give you a ride wherever you need to. And that is literally what's happening on a daily basis. If people get picked up by border protection in Texas, they get a ride to wherever they want to go. And yeah, we're off to the races, right? Other parts of the world, not as much. Here's that spike I'm talking about. This is a massive burp, 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 to the moon, folks, to the moon. You can see where there was hardly any. I mean, we are literally sitting on zero here. You got a handful here, and this is February of 2022, and then December of 2023, we start to take off because word gets out that, hey, on TikTok, you can figure it out. You can demystify how all this goes. And guess what? They'll let you in. And guess what? You can basically fly your ass in. Go through keto. Look at it on TikTok. There you go. And hey, you might want to hurry because they're going to shut down that One app. That was one of the reasons that's being given why there was such a massive spike in December of 2023, this past December, is what there was a rumor that the One app was going to be shut down and the southern border was going to be shut down as well. That didn't end up happening, but man, you had some folks come through, right? 302,000 in December. That was the absolute peak. That is an onslaught of humanity coming through that border. Fears over the soaring rate of Chinese nationals crossing into the U.S. comes as the nation continues to grow its real estate holdings in the U.S. Huh. For all of you out there who are going, it's a plan. This is what they're doing. I'm listening. I'm open to ideas. Most of the time I look at them and go, that just doesn't seem all that reasonable. But, what's the end goal here? What's the end goal of letting, call it 16 million people into the country? Where are we going with that? What do we have going on there? Which is raising questions over whether regulations should be put in place to halt the CCP's potential influence in the U.S. I wouldn't say no. Let's just go there, right? Somebody said, hey, you know what? We're just gonna slow this down a little bit because other countries would do the same damn thing to us. No, you know what? You got a lot of people wanting to leave your country. Coming to ours, here's the process. You're gonna have to stay in their homeland till they get approval, and we'll bring them in. Something along those lines. In San Diego, where a large percentage of Chinese migrants opt to try and get into America, the ease at which people avoid detection was captured in stunning footage shared by Mulligan. In footage shared to X, a small gap in the border fence, that's what we just watched, has become a popular spot for migrants to slip into the U.S. Despite reports bringing attention to the blatant flaw, the Biden administration has seemingly done nothing to fix it for several weeks. I've been considering going down there. It's about an hour east of San Diego. We could check out where they've got the big wall going into the Pacific Ocean. Then we could go east. We could go to, there's a couple of towns along that area that we could go to because it doesn't seem like my chair has literally failed me. Sorry about that, folks. I'm literally switching it out after this live stream here. New chair. The hydraulics have failed me. I don't know. You got one of those little pump things in the bottom, right? It's gone. It just died. So it doesn't seem like California is going to do anything to close up that 4-foot wide gap, does it? Because we're still hearing about this. These numbers are this week. So, and can you imagine California all of a sudden having a come to Jesus moment and going, we got to fix the border. No, that's not where things are headed. It's not where things are going. It's the opposite. Bring them in. We'll fix them. Even though we've got the worst homelessness problem of any state, anywhere. So, we're just going to throw some more fuel on that fire and it should be fine. It'll be all right. It'll be okay. Seattle should be fine. I mean, we're not directly in line with California or anything. That should be entertaining, right? Get out that popcorn. The Biden administration has seemingly done nothing to fix it for several weeks. Absolutely. We've had shenanigans going on at the border for how long? The entire administration, entire current administration. It's wild. It's like, what is your border protection? What are they really doing? They're just escorting people across and they're just having their way with whatever community they end up in. According to the latest CBP statistics, the San Diego sector where the gap is found has seen over 95,000 migrant encounters since October, compared to just over 53,000 in the same time frame in 2023. Nearly double. I'm no statistician, I'm no mathematician. Those numbers are nearly double. In total, the CBP has tracked over 1 million migrant encounters since October. That is a record right there. That, I think, was one of my podcasts yesterday. No, it was released this morning. That's the earliest the mark has ever been reached in a fiscal year, with mounting scrutiny falling on the number that are hailing from China. Yeah, something is going to have to be done, but I don't know what that is because nobody has the balls to do what Texas has done. They just simply don't. You don't have that in the other southern states that are on the border. You've got kind of some talk, but nobody's willing to just, stare down the Biden administration and go, no, we're securing the border. If you're not going to do it, we're taking over Shelby Park and Eagle Pass, and we're going to do it. And we're going to just double down on the razor wire. We're going to double down on the shipping containers. We're going to double down on the floating barricades. And that was another thing. The woman on the Tim Pool podcast last night that I watched, she was like, I've seen the razor wire. It's like it scared her or something. Well, that's good, because that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to prevent people coming into the country illegally. We don't want anybody to get wrapped up in that stuff, but it's a preventative measure. And yet these folks are like, this is terrible. It's awful. We need to clip it all. Let them come in. This will be great. Among those seeking asylum, some have found to have links with the Chinese Communist Party and its affiliated People's Liberation Army, but border chiefs are concerned more could be slipping through their grasp. Absolutely. Just based on a percentage, you're going to have XYZ criminals. You're going to have XYZ bad hombres. It's just going to happen. It's not like the good people are leaving in droves. You know what I mean? The morally, the not corrupt, the morally significant folks, those are the only ones leaving. You got all kinds of people from all walks of life, and some of them have criminal convictions in their background. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if, that's gotten out. Absolutely. No, I'm joking. Sometimes when I say those statements, I'm joking, and people will literally say, oh, Sean, I've heard that, and I've seen that news story. Like, I know, I was kidding. So that's how I handle so much of this stuff, because the level of shenanigans is escalating so hard that, to me, the only thing you can do is kind of go, well, let's say a silly word, which is shenanigans. We're going to use that as a catch-all for just the absolute ridiculousness, like what the mayor of Denver we just talked about is doing. He's cutting services from his constituents to take on illegals that don't have the ability to work because they're a self-proclaimed sanctuary city. I'm sure that'll be fine, right? Chief Patrol Agent Anthony Good of the Border Patrol's El Paso sector told the Homeland Security Committee during a private hearing in September last year that his agents were trying their best to figure out why individuals from other continents are coming, but that information can be hidden, and their agendas, their ideologies, the reason for them coming could be missed. When you have millions of people come into the country willy-nilly, there's going to be all kinds of people that we don't have a clue what they're about. And percentage-wise, I'm not one to harp on every single one of them are bad and they're building an army here. But it's logical that the folks that are coming, some of them are going to be bad. We've already seen. How about the beat down on those cops in New York City? You've got these news stories happening all the time, and mainstream media is like, ooh, that's not, they're just brushing them off. That's not good. Oh, that's unfortunate. Ooh, that's not a good story. We can't really be covering that. Humanity, I mean, these people were forced into a life of crime by wherever it was going on in Venezuela, which is apparently due to, some blue people. It's due to U.S. policy. And you're like, that's a stretch. China tops the asylum charts. Individuals granted defensive asylum by country of nationality. We got China, we got El Salvador, we got India, Guatemala, Honduras, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Russia, Mexico. For years and years and years, we had that term that had to do with being wet, coming over from the Rio Grande, and that their backs would also be wet. You remember that term? And they were all typically from Mexico. And now Mexico's all the way down here at 3%. And so much of that has to do with, they're still coming from southern Mexico, but northern Mexico is wildly different than it has been. And you've got other countries that are way less stable than Mexico, right? And that's kind of what you see going on. So then we get into a bunch of other asylum claims, and I don't think there was a ton more in this article. His agents were being overwhelmed with many Chinese nationals being released into the interior with little consideration for their country of origin. Green blamed Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas for making it clear to the entire world that our borders are open. And dereliction of duty, absolutely. Then we had the impeachment happen yesterday. That's not going to go anywhere because now it's got to go to the Senate. That's not going anywhere. I mean, it's a good try, guys, but that just isn't happening. You know, it's kind of one of those things for show, in my opinion, because they don't have the votes to do it. And it failed the first time in the House, I think it was. So you've got a situation where everybody knows this is the deal, but actually doing something about it, you're going to have the Biden administration's going to have to go. It's going to have to go. Otherwise, you got another 4 years of this ridiculousness. It'll get toned down somehow. You'll have some changes happen, but I don't, you know, what is going on right now is not sustainable, but it could happen for quite a while moving forward. So there's that. All right, I'm going to wrap up this one. Thank you so much for being here on this episode. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. I will see you on the next one. Thanks for being here. Catch you on the next one. Bye. And for you live streamers, keep going. We're going to keep going. I'm going to work on my damn chair again. There we go. Can't wait for a new chair. Somebody super chat me so I can get a new chair. How ridiculous is that? All right, let's keep going here. Yeah, we covered that. We covered that. We covered that. Here we go. All right. This is the next one. This is the next one. I think you're going to have a huge flood, but we'll get into it. We'll do it. Let me see what you guys are talking about on the chat here for a second. Somebody's talking about eating bugs. TNT Cycles from Portland. You are welcome. The deciding vote called in. Yeah. So somebody, solemn peace, somebody came off of their hospital bed to vote no on the last impeachment vote, I think. If you're on Rumble, I will. I am on Rumble. This is being broadcast live on Rumble. You can watch us on Rumble there. We're also live on, I think Facebook and a handful of other platforms. So if you've got, another platform you want to watch it on, you can, but YouTube is kind of what our main. FDA says 4% human meat legal. Solemn peace. I did not know that. That's some good stuff right there. I love those stats. I was watching a guy this morning on Instagram who was eating a pound of raw chicken, and he took the plastic container and he drank the chicken juice. I hope you're not eating while I just said that, but it was terrible. It's like his whole thing was, I'm going to keep eating raw chicken until I get a stomachache. Well, you just gave me one, and I'm not eating anything. Let's get into our next topic here, and I think this is one that has been, we just haven't quite got there yet mentally, of projection. I always talk about real estate. This is one of those things where it isn't about reality. It's about what people think. It's about the perception of reality. Oh my gosh, Trump might win. What's going to happen? Let's get into it. All right. I'll drink from my contaminated plastic cup. It's not contaminated. I mean, mostly. I mean, a little Shigella never killed anybody, did it? Right? Here we go. Migrants to flood the border out of fear of Trump winning the 2024 election. This is from the Border Patrol Union head. Does this make sense? Are we going to see the United States flooded even further than we did in December of 2023, where 302,000 migrants just came siege style across the border? We going to see that happen because people perceive Trump winning? Maybe? Let's get into it. Here we go. I think Trump's got a shot. What do you guys think? Let me know on the live stream. What do you guys think? You could do it. You could do it. Migrants will likely flood to the U.S.-Mexico border ahead of the 2024. I got to make sure you guys can see this. Sorry. We're going to redo that. I need to pull this back. There we go. How about that? What do you guys think about that? That better? Do you care? I'm going to read it to you anyway. You're like a toddler and I'm reading a book, right? I don't care. I just want to do my live stream chat. I could care less about reading the damn thing. You read it. All right. That's what we'll do. Migrants will likely flood to the U.S.-Mexico border ahead of the 2024 presidential election out of fears of former President Donald Trump, according to National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd. I had the talk with my dental hygienist last week, I think it was. And I said, hey, I think Trump's going to win. I think Trump's got a really good shot at winning. And she goes, you do? She hates Trump. I'm like, I just don't care. Clean my teeth, right? And she's a great gal, and I really like her. But I don't think she really gets into the issues quite as much as I do. And she does. And she was like, why were you down at the border live streaming on your Instagram account? Well, because that's an issue that I cover. It's an issue that a lot of people are concerned about because you've got millions of people streaming into the country illegally. Oh, yeah. She's a great gal, and she cleans my teeth really well. I followed her from one dentist office that was cratering to another, and yeah. While appearing on Fox Business, Varney and Company, Judd was asked by host Stuart Varney if he expects to see a surge of migrants at the border as Trump looks more and more likely to win the 2024 presidential election. What do you guys think? You guys think Trump has a shot at winning? I do. Will the machine let him win? That's another big question, right? He's got all these court cases going on, none of which to me appear to hold a ton of merit. You're like, okay, are they going to really be able to hold him back? You know, taking him off the ballots. It's like, come on. I mean, I think he's got a shot, especially with how Biden has been. You know, if Biden isn't able to run, who are they going to run? Gruesome Newsom and heels up Harris? Maybe. I mean, come on now. Those two are not electable. We'll have to see, right? I mean, only time will tell. These are exciting times. Back when I was a kid, we had like Jimmy Carter, yeah, the peanut guy. We had Ford. You had Bush. I mean, these are kind of more staid, boring guys, right? You got Trump in there, and then you got Biden in there, just absolutely losing his mind. His marbles are lost. I mean, how we got here. We do. This is in the question of, do you think you're going to see a surge across the border if Trump wins? We do, Judd said in response. We saw this back when President Trump was up for re-election again. We saw a huge surge expecting that Biden was going to win. They wanted to get here before Biden took office, knowing that he was going to put out policies in place that were going to protect them. Remember that? Big surge at the border because, hey, let's get in because Biden's going to help us out. He's going to help a brother out, right? Help a brother out. He's going to, and he did. By and large, he did. So why wouldn't you make a dash for it under those circumstances? Hey, if we can get in, we're golden. We'll have a number of years under the Biden leadership. We see the cartels. They are very intelligent in everything that they do. They know what the ebbs and flows of our politics are. They know how to generate money based on what our politics are. They also understand what the media is reporting. Let's stop right there because I think there are some really important things in there. Number one, they know what the ebbs and flows of our politics are, and they fit right in with that. All right, so we know Trump has said, and we're gonna play some clips. In fact, we'll finish out just these three-pronged things, and we'll jump to the clips. Have I ever shown a Trump clip? I don't know if I have, but I mean, we've got some I think that we gotta look at. But Trump has said, hey, we're going to do mass deportations. Whether or not he will, I mean, he says a lot of stuff, right? Sometimes he has been more accurate than not on some of just the most ridiculous stuff where you're like, that doesn't make no sense at all. A few years goes by, and it's like, oh, did somebody, oh yeah, Trump said that, right? I mean, you have so many of those instances. They know how to generate money based on what our politics are. Texas does a little pushback. They're gonna change up their operations. It's just like a business. You pivot, you react. I mean, they don't care. they're already pushing these people thousands of miles from their home country of Venezuela or wherever. You add a few hundred more miles, you betcha, they're down. They have no issues with that. It's about money to them, right? It's about money to them. They also understand what the media is reporting. That's an interesting one. They get it. These guys are super smart. I mean, cartel is just, they're super smart. They're not just a bunch of running around with machine guns, cutting people down, doing up some drugs, getting high on our own supply. It's a business. It's a trillion upon trillion of dollar, billion, whatever it is, industry. I don't even know what the cartel numbers are. I mean, it's enormous, right? They're literally dictating world politics is what they're doing. And everybody kind of wants to ignore, hey, which border are they mainly running through? Southern one. And what's our border protection doing? Escorting people in. There's a bus over there. There's your white van. There's your white van. Get in the white van. It'll take you to the sanctuary city if you're choosing. Got to do this again. All right. So here's the context. Over the past several months, data from Customs and Border Protection has shown a continued increase in the number of illegal immigrants encounters at the southern borders. In January, the data shows 176,000 illegal migrant encounters at the southwest land borders, which is a decline from December, which saw 302,034. But this January was also a record. So the numbers came way down month over month, but year over year, that is a record. And this is also the first year at this point in time in early February that we've reached 1 million illegal alien encounters at the southern border in the fiscal year, which starts in October. However, the numbers are still much higher than prior years, such as December 2020, which only saw 73,000 illegal migrant encounters. These numbers are just staggering. What we know, here's what we know. It's like, this is Newsweek, so this is what's happened to us. We are victims here. What we know, Trump has pledged to take action to secure the U.S.-Mexico border if he is elected in 2024. He has. On day one, I will terminate every open border of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. Now, if that doesn't rock the perception just a scooch, with all the shenanigans going on in the U.S. right now, if that doesn't push that perception to not only the cartel, but all the folks seeking asylum, all the folks in Venezuela, Honduras, we read the laundry list of where they're coming from. If that doesn't push their perception, you know what? Maybe I should, they're following U.S. politics for sure, because that dictates what happens with their future of their lives. I mean, so they've got a roll of the dice based on who's in office. And if Trump, who is seemingly looking more and more like he's got a solid shot, you hate to say, it's a sure thing, because nothing is sure with the way politics are now, with the way voting is now, with the way the systems are now. I mean, the laptop from hell, that for me was an eye opener, because I recorded a number of podcasts on that and they were all basically stopped short. They're just stopped. Yeah, we don't have any advertisers that really feel like this is a topic that they want to advertise on. And so we got demonetized. And when you get a topic demonetized, then, it doesn't go out. That's what happens. It does not get pushed out. It's never going to catch on, even though that was one of the most hot topics in, October of 2020? Right before the election. Third week in October, something like that. That to me was, all right, we are not playing fair here. I mean, like large scale. You get 51 former military officials saying, it sounds like Russian disinfo. What a bunch of crap. They didn't even come out and say it was Russian disinfo. They just said it sounded like it. And the American public took that and ran with it. It's Russian disinfo. Just like that whole Russian hoax with Trump. Just whatever came of that. Yeah, nothing, right? Wild stuff. So, views. Republicans have repeatedly criticized President Joe Biden for his handling of the U.S.-Mexico border and have opposed a bipartisan border security bill. Biden accused Republicans this month of being afraid of Trump because of the former president's opposition to the border security bill. What Trump did is he looked at the bill and he heard what the bill was about, and he said, that's a bad deal. Don't do it. Don't sign it. That's a terrible deal. You don't need that deal. What you need to do is enforce the laws of the country that are already in place. Just go enforce the border like Texas is doing now. You'll drop those numbers. You will drop those numbers. Guy's not wrong. If the bill fails, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The American people are going to know why it failed. Trump and the MAGA Republicans said no because they're afraid of Donald Trump, Biden said. No, I think the Republicans looked at it and went, this doesn't make sense. Still having, up to 5,000 a day come across the border. And you're going to read all kinds of news stories that say, that's not 5,000. Well, you've got these thresholds. One's at 4,000 a day, triggers something. One's at 5,000 a day, another at 8,000, automatic shutdown of the border. You've got some levels in there. It still allows in between 1 million and 1.8, depending on what you trigger, a year. It's not a fix-all, and it's not a good deal. But because it was a deal in place that allowed funding of Israel and allowed funding of Ukraine, they wanted to push for that because now they're like, oh, how are we going to get that funding done? What are we going to do here? What's going on, guys? What are we going to do? So what's next? This is from Newsweek. Keep in mind, if you can read the news from Newsweek and have it make sense, world's your oyster, right? Because it is from such a perspective of, well, yeah, we support Biden. Don't like that MAGA guy. Don't like that red hat guy. What's next? A recent poll from PBS NewsHour, NPR, Marist, shouldn't that say Marxist? National Propaganda Radio, found that 42% of Americans, including 72% of Republicans, said that they believe the U.S. is too open on the border. Yeah, it is. That's because it is. Last month, the CBS News YouGov poll found an increasing number of Americans saying that the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border is a crisis. 45% in January, up from 38% last May. I asked my producer here, and he's 30-ish. We're gonna watch this video in a second. What is the younger generation? What are the millennials? Are they talking about immigration? Because I've had conversations and a lot of young folks that are conservative. They have told me, hey, you know what, Sean? I didn't really follow this topic until I started following your podcast and kind of understanding some of the nuances of what's going on here. And, I've got all kinds of news things that pop up articles for me on immigration alone because it's been such a hot topic of late. But I haven't really covered it for all that long. I was too busy covering the Summer of Love and the shenanigans here in the Pacific Northwest, which there are still aplenty. It's just that we've got other news stories that are kind of supplanting that on a national basis, and I'm going to do those all day long. Let's watch this video. This is a good one. Okay, so I got to kill the audio there. Let's get back to here.
To immigration.
Here.
Walk us through your plan for immigration, because is it as easy as going back to the security that you had in place, like the Remain in Mexico and all these other things that Joe Biden overturned? There are 8 to 10 million illegals in the country right now on Joe Biden's watch. So what do you do with them? Are you going to deport them all?
Well, you're going to have to deport a lot of them. It's not sustainable. And now you look, these countries are very smart. I know every one of the leaders of the countries for the most part. The presidents, the dictators, I know them all. I know the kings, the queens, I know them all. These are smart people. These are streetwise people. It makes sense that they're taking people out and sending them up in caravans to the United States. And it's not just South America. It's from Africa, from Asia, from all over the world.
Asia.
Yeah. I mean, from all over the world. From China, there are 28,000 people in the last few months. 28,000. That's what's he doing? Building an army? And they were mostly men, almost all men.
Think about this for a second. Could you imagine Biden stating these facts? Can you imagine at this point in time in his life cycle, Biden coming up with this information or even reading this information off of a teleprompter? which is in and of itself. I do it, not that often anymore, but I did it for a lot of real estate stuff where you have a lot of stats. There is no way. But Trump, he's just rattling off information, right?
From the age of 18 to 25. So what's that all about?
But are you talking about mass deportation? What do you do with the 8 to 10 million people already here?
Okay, Dwight Eisenhower, believe it or not, you don't think of him as being a tough president or a great president. He was actually a very good president. He was very strong on deportation because a lot of people were coming into our country illegally. And he started a big mass deportation. He dropped them very close to the border, and they came back. Then he dropped them 2,000 miles away, and they didn't come back. We cannot allow scenes like I saw in New York 2 days ago, where policemen are being beat up by gangs of illegal immigrants, in that case from Venezuela, Honduras. We can't allow that. And these are kids that are fighters. They were not, babies. They were knocking the hell out of our policemen. We can't let this happen. These are tough people. So the heads of these countries are smart. They're not sending the people that are doing a great job and that they love in the country.
It just keeps going.
They're sending people, for the most part, that they don't want. And they're putting them into caravans. I know that because they tried it with me, but I turned back the caravans. Look, I had the safest border in the history of our country. I built 561 miles of wall, and that was good. But I also got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. Now, I told them that we were not going to be happy if you don't do it. We're going to put
the art of the deal.
Tariffs on your cars and everything else that you sell us, which is a lot, if you don't do it. And they did it. They gave us 28,000 soldiers, and we had the best border we ever had. To this day, I had the best border we've ever had. Now we have the worst border probably in the history of the world.
You're a racist!
Who the hell is I knew.
That's a funny clip. So much good stuff out there. But let me get to this next segment here. What do we have here? Oh, that's the Alejandro Mayorkas. So Trump stats, some of those are not exactly 100% accurate, but you know what? We're going to go with the general terms of what he's talking about. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. And from the standpoint of Biden having probably one of the most porous borders, I mean, we know this because this has been one of the biggest migrations in modern times coming into the U.S. It's like, wow, those are some huge numbers because we're allowing it to happen. Our border protection is literally just bringing people through. So when you hear Trump talk about mass deportations, maybe he's serious, maybe he's not. It appears as though he is, right? Appears as though he is. Perception is everything. Trump keeps talking about that. His campaign, he's out there campaigning while, Joe Biden is doing whatever it is that he does on a daily basis, falling up the stairs and bumbling, he's just bumbling everything right now. I mean, cognitive decline. Absolutely. I mean, it's what's happening to him is you're watching unfold on a worldwide stage. And I think that is really irresponsible just from a human being standpoint. But you got to just hold your guy up there for, let's see if we can get another couple of months out of him before this whole thing just implodes. That's what I think is happening. And I think a lot of other people are thinking it's happening. But anybody, the millions and millions of people from around the world that have maybe put off until this point, making that jaunt, making that gauntlet through the Darien Gap, they're going to think twice when you've got 4 years of Trump coming into the office, right? They're going to think twice and they're going to make a run for it. So we're in February now. What is March, April, May, June, July? I mean, we're talking peak weather seasons coming up, right? In mountain climbing, you go through a window when you do a summit attempt. On Rainier, you've got a pretty wide window. You can summit in the middle of winter, but it is horrific and you might die because Rainier creates its own weather system. Same thing with Everest. Same thing with K2, Cho-Yu. They're all massive mountains and you've got a window to go through. Same thing with weather coming up through the southern border. You've had some cold weather. That's why January is one of those months where you don't have record-setting number of migrants coming through relative to the other months. But you've got some good weather coming up. You've got that window. It's go time. Everybody's going to be ready. Let's get in because Biden's going to take care of us. Trump, he might deport us. He might deport 10 million people. I mean, the reality of that happening, I don't know. What would that look like? How would that go down? I don't think that's going to happen. But the perception of it is, even if there's an outside shot, a lot of folks from around the world don't want to take that shot. So they're going to make their run. They're going to come into the U.S. now. So I think there is going to be a major, major push for folks to get into the United States sooner than later. All right. That's it for me on this segment. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We're dropping 2 podcasts a day, Monday through Friday. Right now, we're also doing a live stream. I'm 2 for 2. Doing live streams where we kind of go through all the information. You can watch that live in real time. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we drop another podcast each day. So love to have you be involved with that. Do all that good stuff. And I'll catch up with you in the next episode. Bye for now. All right. Gotta do this damn thing with my chair again. Ugh. See what you guys are talking about. All right. Good luck for the illegals crossing the Arizona Sonora Desert. It's already spring in Arizona by May. Yeah, that's another thing. Letty Sleeper. That's another weather. I mean, it's good weather. It is. I love your live streams. You're welcome. I love having you here. It's great to have people, because if I sit here and there's nobody chatting, it makes me think I'm a loser. You're a loser, baby. But be right back. The dog's got to go out. Got to take care of those dogs. Yeah. Weather. I mean, I was watching a rancher down in, where was it? Oh, it was where I was, north of Eagle Pass by about 22 miles. And a rancher there was saying, over the years, we've had about 35 people die of dehydration coming through their ranch. Can you imagine that? 35 bodies. You find a body and they die of dehydration. Because, I mean, that's a long haul. The cartels pushing you. And you've already had probably a couple of months of terrible food, terrible sleep, because you're sleeping on the run. Maybe you've been robbed. Maybe if you're a female, you've been sexually assaulted. I mean, just some hideous stuff going on. Through Mexico, through the Darien Gap, through any of these countries, you are susceptible to, people taking advantage of you because you are literally a target. There's a legal immigrant. Let's rob their money. What are they going to do? They're illegal. What are you going to do? It's like the females in the homeless encampments. So many of them already have charges and they're doing drugs. They're dealing drugs. They're doing whatever. They're not going to narc on somebody who has their way with them. They're just not. It's not how it goes down. And when you're dealing with the cartel, you don't narc on the cartel at all, because you lose your hands, lose your life, lose whatever. So, weather is going to play a huge part of it too. And you're going to have a bunch of people that are going to die. We do every single year, but we ignore that. The Biden administration ignores how much, negative pressure they're putting on people by making them, go through this gauntlet, go through this song and drill. One of the things from yesterday's live stream was Greg Abbott. He was sitting in Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, and you've literally got the bridge, number 1, literally over his shoulder. I walked over that bridge, did a live stream, said, hey, there's a bunch of cars, and those are all the governors that are hanging out in Eagle Pass as Governor Abbott was going to do his speech. During his speech, Governor Abbott pointed out that nobody's ever drowned going across the bridge. So why aren't we using it? If you're literally just going to bring people in and then escort them, Customs and Border Protection is going to escort them to the nearest white van to get their ride to San Antonio and then move them on to wherever. Let's cut the charades and not kill people. Let's cut the charades and not march them through the Sonora Desert, I think it was, and make them do that song and dance. I mean, right? Where's the humanity in that? Well, because then it would really look like we're doing what we're doing, which is what we're doing, which is we don't have a secure southern border at all. Right? I mean, I just don't see it any other way. Ladies, here is your, okay, that is before. Okay, here is the Happy Valentine's Day story for you ladies. Disney is adding urinals to all women's restrooms. Yes, yes, they are. Disney World is adding urinals to all women's restrooms. This is an effort by Disney to be more inclusive. They want to ensure that people are more comfortable in their bathrooms. All right, so I'm going to take you back to 1979. This was an album cover by the band Foreigner, who I'm a huge fan. Remember the song Jukebox Hero? Jukebox Hero. Yeah, that song. Well, they had an album before that. I went to a Christian elementary school and a Christian middle school, same school, Bellevue Christian, Bellevue High School, Bellevue Christian. And this album was frowned upon because you had a young lady who was kind of sitting on the edge of a urinal, and she didn't have a bra on. And the story is that she was taking toilet paper and she was wiping off graffiti from the stall in the men's room. Now there's nobody here in the stall, so why is she using the restroom the way a female would in a men's, urinal? What's the deal? This was a big scandal. Because what is going on with this image? And she looks like she is scared. What's happening? Who just came into the men's room? Is she caught wiping off the graffiti? We don't know. So in 1979, this was a huge no-no. This was how rock and roll was destroying the fabric of American society, destroying the fabric of the world. Rock and roll was from Satan, and it was, just horrible. What I was thinking was, what if Sean had a glimpse of what's going to happen in February of 2024, and Sean pops off in 1979 to the administration of Bellevue Christian, who said that this is, the downfall of mankind. In 2024, Disney's going to put men's urinals into the women's restrooms to keep the transsexuals happy. Could you imagine that? It's literally a story. We're reading it. It's not that many years later. This is where we sit. Why would you have a urinal in the ladies' room? Because the guys that have wieners, they're the ones that want to use. To me, this is just horrific. According to an official spokesperson, adding urinals to the women's restroom provides a safer and more inclusive atmosphere for everyone. Ladies on the live chat, let me know. Are you going to feel safer if there is a urinal in your restroom? I don't think you are. And do you feel like it's a more inclusive atmosphere when somebody who has the physical structure that needs a urinal? Because as we saw with this young lady here, it would be a stretch for her to use the urinal in the way that it's meant. And anatomically, that's not really going to happen, right? But anyway, Disney's going down this crazy train. Meanwhile, many women are complaining that replacing stalls with urinals allows for less capacity. Oh, yeah. Because you've only got so much space, right? You only got so much space. This increases the already long lines inside the women's restrooms. I've been through so many concerts, and, the dudes get done. They hustle through. They do their thing because it's just so much faster for us to do our thing. And then you got to wait for your girlfriend, your wife, or whatever, and she's still standing in the line, and you've come out, and you stand with her and wait for her to go, and you get in there. You need, women's restrooms need to be 2-3 times as large as the men's. They just do. It's one of those things, right? That's equality. That would be equity. That would be inclusion. It's diversity. Who cares? So this is the newest development in Disney, removing all genders from their bathrooms. In Seattle, quite a few restrooms in pretty nice restaurants. They're unisex now, right? It just says, men and women. All right. Okay. I'd prefer not to do that. I'd prefer to have a men's room and prefer to have a women's room, just maybe because that's what I've been doing for 55 years. And I don't really think we need to change that up. There's really nothing. But okay, if you got to go down that road, it's Seattle. I get it. But this whole thing, it's like having tampon dispensers in the men's restroom. Why do you need that? You don't. Why do you need urinals in the women's room? You don't. It's just absolutely mind-blowingly ridiculous, right? As you might remember, this caused quite a bit of concern, allowing men to use the restroom alongside women. You know what? If I had a teenage daughter and there's a urinal, I saw that, I'd be like, you know what? Take your mom in, whatever. But, if there's some Looney Tune in there, because people that think they should be going to the bathroom in the women's restroom who have the anatomy to use a urinal, as a father, I didn't have girls, but if I was a father of girls, I would say, hell to the no, we're not doing that. No. And taking like a little girl in? No. This just elevates just so much ridiculousness. These are the shenanigans that are going on that are just, it's wild to imagine. Go back to 1979. It's an image of a woman literally perching herself on a urinal. This is so horrible. And now it's happening because of, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What a bunch of crap. This, of course, is a small part in the larger debate over genders and bathrooms across the U.S. What you're literally doing is pointing out that even though somebody is a trans woman, they're still a man, because otherwise they wouldn't need to use a urinal. I don't know. Does that seem reasonable? It does to me. For now, Disney will slowly begin removing stalls in the women's restrooms and adding urinals. What happened? Where did we go sideways here? This is just nutty, right? Many are asking how this will impact Disney's VIP bathroom service, which we reported on here. Eventually, the goal is to install urinals in all women's restrooms across the property. When we asked one man about it, he said, now I can finally use the women's restroom without worrying about being arrested. Okay, you shouldn't be going. That's a no-go. If you got to go that bad, you either drank too much or you're just not really managing your diet all that well. Or you went to some epic Mexican food, right? You know what I mean? That comment alone has raised a lot of concern. We will see if Ron DeSantis has a response to this. What a ridiculous story. But this is our reality in 2024. We've got shenanigans for days. So that's what I'm going to leave you with on Valentine's Day. I hope you guys have a great Valentine's Day. I hope you go do something fun. Here's my Valentine's Day. This morning, I did the dishes at my girlfriend's house, and I sent her a little picture of how I did them all, and I said, Happy Valentine's Day. I mean, I did something, right? I get credit for something. And then I also picked out what we're going to eat for dinner, and, making that decision sometimes is it's an uphill battle. So we're eating this, and this, and your dishes are done. Happy Valentine's Day. So I hope you guys have a great Valentine's Day. I'm going to go eat some lunch. Carry on with your day. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. Now I got to end the live